You're listening to Why We Do What We Do. Welcome to Why We Do What We Do. I am your host, Abraham.
And I'm your host, Shane.
And we are a psychology podcast, and we like to take these bite-sized topics of psychological phenomenon, events, things, constructs, ideas, whatever, and we break them down into easy, digestible, understandable pieces. And this is our attempt to do this now, but by talking about things that we wear on our fingers.
Yes, so we are talking about mood rings. So this is the Horrors Divorce of episodes, if you get that's how you pronounce that, right? That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, that's right.
I read very literally.
I think just for people who maybe don't get the visualization of that joke, it is hors d'oeuvres.
Hors d'oeuvres, yes. French. I tried to learn French in college, and I dropped out of college because of French.
Like, why did these letters not say their sounds?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Spanish.
Anyway, as you said, we are talking about jewelry that tells us what temperature we are. And implied in that, or at least what some people then believe, is that indicates what we're feeling.
And you know what? To some degree, it's not terribly far off. I mean, it is far off, but it's not as far off as we might think.
Yeah.
So you might be going into this episode going, clearly mood rings are based on temperature. And yes, it is. However, as you'll see, and as we unpack, our temperature does change depending on how we feel.
Fair. All right, so let's talk about this. What is a mood ring? A mood ring, or any mood jewelry, because it does not have to be a ring, is a type of jewelry or adornment that contains a mood stone. This is a stone that mooed in the past, because it is a cow stone. Just kidding. Mood, M-O-O-D. Or thermochromatic element, which... we'll break that word down because I think implied, I mean, the name kind of gives away what's going on there.
Yeah, so thermochromatic, as you could guess, refers to substances that change color due to temperature. So thermo comes from the Greek terms thermos, which means hot, or therme, which means heat, where chromatic has origins in Greek, which includes chroma, chromat, and chromatikos, French, which is chromatique, and Latin, which is chromaticus. So you can see heat and the color and all that stuff, like all of that together, that's really ultimately what it means. Heat and color together.
Hot color. Yeah.
Hot color is what we're talking about here.
Neon color.
Yeah.
You would have also seen this in the root where we talked about tetrachromats, humans who can see more than the color spectrum that most humans can see. So similar there. So mood rings are characterized by a few features. One, maybe most importantly, is they're cheap. That is a very common feature of mood rings. These are easily malleable metals with colorful changing stone insets that are supposed to change based on your mood, therefore sort of allowing someone a visual into your mind, into your state of being via rock on your body.
Right, exactly. During the 1970s, this was a major fashion movement. Like, people were obsessed with these things, similar to kind of how pet rocks existed. And
sure.
You know, and I think every generation has that. Like, our generation had Beanie Babies, and we had hit clips. I don't know if you remember those, but so hit clips were the mood rings of the late 1990s. So if you don't remember hit clips were like these like weird keychains that had like a sample of a song on it that you would put into this like specific device for it, and it would just play like half of Hit Me Baby One More Time or something like that.
I mean, that's really the whole song. You just didn't repeat as many times.
Yeah, exactly. So they actually cited jeweler Marvin Wernick as the original inventor of the accessory. Supposedly, he'd been reading an article about the technology being used, like the liquid being used for medical thermometers, being the liquid that's in the stones to kind of like measure body temperature. And from there, he created jewelry and began selling these, quote, magic stones. He called them magic jewelry, magic stones to identify people's moods.
You know what they say, observation of medical equipment is the mother of invention. I think that's the
that is the saying, yes.
Joshua Reynolds then came in as a mass producer of the jewelry, of the mood rings. So by the end of 1975, mood ring sales had skyrocketed, selling about $15 million worth of the product. Now, that might not be much by today's standards. I mean, everyone's like, a paltry 15 million. I've got
That's
that in
all.
my back pocket.
Yeah, of course.
But adjusting for inflation, that is about $89 million in 2024 money. So not that much still.
Still not that much,
kidding.
but it's still quite a feat for, I guess, fad jewelry, right? And mood rings can be purchased for so cheap that by our estimates, with mood rings, let's say, costing about $325 at the most, close to 27.5 million rings were sold in 1975 alone. So people were really into this.
You know that there was somebody who had like 10 rings on every finger and 3 rings on every toe.
Yeah, I mean the Mandarin from Iron Man, he had 10 rings. So
that's right. That is a fact. That is what they say. What they say. I mean, that's what happened. So it's indisputable. All right, we should understand how these colors, how the reflection of light off of a stone on your body is the window to our souls. After we create a window for the opposite of souls, which is advertisements. Okay, we're back. We're talking about how to feel, or how to tell how someone feels using the visible spectrum of light.
There are a lot of interpretations for what mood rings mean for us when we wear them, and I'm going to go ahead and go with the chart that I found that had similar or consistent report outs for the colors. And so this is going to kind of harken back to the color psychology episode too, and what that kind of, so like we're going to get into that a little bit. But if you want to know what your mood ring means, here is a nice, easy way to interpret it. First, if your mood ring is red, then you are either feeling intense, feeling angry, or feeling passionate.
Sure, that's all intuitive.
Yeah.
If your color is orange, then you are feeling orange. Oh, sorry. I mean, you're feeling aggressive, irritated, and impatient, which is subtly distinct from intense, angry, and passionate.
Yes. Yellow is nervous, unsettled, or distracted. In the Green Lantern comics, yellow is fear.
Oh. Green is envious, actually. It is fresh, amused, and active.
Which I thought fresh was a funny one. I've never described my mood as fresh.
Yeah, I also don't think that I have.
I thought it was a fun one.
I want to now. I'm going to start using that.
Hey, I'm feeling fresh today. Blue is calm, peaceful, and content.
This is not to be confused with royal blue, which is passionate, love, and romantic. I'm not sure if you showed me blue and showed me royal blue, if I would be able to tell you which one was royal blue versus regular blue.
Yeah. And then there's dark blue, which is happiness, joy, and optimistic, which I thought was interesting because blue is equated often with depression and sadness. So I thought that was kind of a fun little play on that.
Blue is like really heavily represented in the color scheme of the stone.
I feel like there's probably a level where they went, I don't know that most people can identify indigo.
Sure.
So they went, okay, we'll just do a lot of blue.
Then we have purple, which is balanced, tranquil, and satisfied.
Yes. And then there's black, which is stressed, overworked, and tired.
That seems like a big jump from one to the other when I feel like those should be much further apart. But if you're having trouble remembering the order of those colors, you can think of the rainbow where you have Roy G.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm so glad that you gave us that. I was not going to remember it until then.
All right, let's talk about how this works or doesn't work. Okay. So your body temperature can change based on blood flow. So there is the connection we see here in terms of like how warm you are, how much blood is flowing. That can then show up as warmth. And therefore that could certainly be registered as something different than how you would be in a different state. Then implication is, does your body temperature change based on your mood specifically? Like if I'm feeling unsettled or joyful, is that reliably and demonstrably measured via my body temperature? In a way, first of all, your body temperature does change on your mood. Yes, that is the thing. It is correct. Is the mood ring changing based on your mood? Only in like this loose correlational sense, if any, if we can make that jump.
Right. So basically, like, yes, your body, like your physiology does change depending on your mood. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the mood ring is not changing because you're feeling angry. It's changing because maybe your blood is flowing faster in your body and like that's your temperature is higher as a result. Like you would get the same effect from being really, really, really angry and also jogging.
Right. Exactly.
You know, so like that's kind of how that works. Now, the molecules in the stone or the crystal that are inset in the jewelry, are highly sensitive to temperature changes. And when I say highly sensitive, I simply mean when the temperature changes, they will change. They're not sensitive to mood.
Right.
They are sensitive to the temperature changes in your body. And when the temperature changes, the molecules themselves will either change position or they'll twist. And what I mean by that is essentially the actual molecules inside of in the liquid crystal that's in there. They will position or twist, and then that affects how the wavelengths of light are absorbed and reflected through those different molecules. And that's why you see the changes, because the molecules themselves are changing, but depending on heat.
So the mood ring crystals are inset in a metal alloy that help conduct heat directly into the liquid. So it's important that they be able to detect temperature to be able to change.
Right.
So the alloy is set up so that heat does conduct through it, and depending on the temperature will then alter those colors.
Right. So you very rarely see a mood ring that's plastic, is all I'm saying.
Fair.
Green is the middle ground. They say green is like the temperature that's like kind of the standard fare. The liquid for the color green approximately sits at 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Celsius. And if your body temperature is at 82 degrees Fahrenheit, if you're wearing a mood ring and it's green, you need to call a doctor because our body does not sit at that level.
That is a weird thing to pick. No, we're in the 90s. We're in the high 90s. And it does not alter much between being normal and being sick. So
right.
82 is someone who is cooling from a recent death.
Right.
Anyway, remember when we said a black mood ring means that you're stressed? Well, when you're stressed, your body reallocates blood flow to major muscle groups and essential organs. Your fingers aren't essential in a crisis, so they'll get less blood flow. So the idea then being that if we are to correlate these together, the idea is it's going to be colder. If your body's going to be colder when you're more stressed, and if that's the case, then their mood ring is going to show up as black.
Right. So basically, all this boils down to is blood flow equals temperature change equals color change. That's all that happens. There is no mood in the equation. There's lots of different variables that equate to temperature change in your body. Mood could be one of them, but it's not the thing that always changes in your body to change temperature. And ultimately, the only thing that happens is temperature changes around or is conducted into the liquid in the mood ring. And that's why we have those.
Yeah. Just unpacking this skeptically, there's just so many steps removed from measuring mood.
Right.
First of all, we have to assume that our body temperature is reliably correlated with specific moods, which I don't think that we can say. We have to then say that the color that we get from those temperatures is a reliable interpretation of what those temperatures are. And that means that they're therefore an insightful way to looking at someone's mood. I mean, it's so many steps to get to is this reliable and consistent? No, therefore the rest of it fails. But let's say it was reliable and consistent. Can we be confident that each mood measures it as relevant to that person for their basal temperature, for their moods, for their relative blood flow? No, we can't say that. So then the rest of it falls apart. And it's sort of at every step, if it did work, the rest of it if the previous step did work, then the subsequent step would fall apart because none of this really does anything. And I think if we look at why people got so wrapped up in this, the idea of shortcut little tips and tricks, something that you can buy that will give people sort of this magical insight into the inner worlds that are our lives, that's always been something that's fascinated people.
Sure.
I mean, definitely being able to more easily interpret someone else's body language, to be able to interpret more easily their experiences without trying to make a lot of inferences and guesses has, I think, general social value as well as it could have useful forensic value, let's say.
Right.
If they could slap a mood ring on a criminal and determine whether or not they're lying, they would 100% do that, right?
Sure.
The appeal has been there for a long time for a lot of reasons to try and have a window into the internal workings of another person. So that's, I think, why these were successful in appealing to a lot of people. But can we actually use these reliably and meaningfully to understand how someone feels? Not even kind of a little bit.
No.
At best we get what their ambient temperature seems to be, which is also going to, by the way, include room temperature. It's not only conducting temperature from their skin. So whatever is the temperature around them plus whatever is going on in their blood, I mean, really, you have essentially like a linear scale on this, right? So like they're basically saying like a couple of degrees up is what temperature looks like for this mood, or not even a couple, maybe a half a degree up. And I'm like, I think those kind of fluctuations are things that we cannot reliably associate with any kind of state of mind, let alone something as like distinct as blue to royal blue to dark blue, spanning calm to joy from 3 almost indistinguishable colors. So.
Well, even a mantis shrimp who has more cones and rods in its eyes and is supposed to be able to see a much more distinct and discriminative color spectrum, cannot distinguish between blue and royal blue. Like, let's not pretend for a second. I think with all that being said, because I think one of the things about being a skeptic sometimes is that it takes the fun out of things. I think mood rings are still really fun.
Yeah.
They're still really fun to play with. It's fun to mess with that material and experiment with it and kind of just see something that you can actively and scientifically change in your world. Like, I think it's fun and mostly harmless.
Right.
They're fairly cheap in general. You can win them at Chuck E. Cheese when you have enough tickets if you want to. I mean, not saying that Chuck E. Cheese isn't harmless. That entertainment rat is like kind of like the seedy underbelly of rat entertainment. And so, but I think being able to get enough tickets to get a mood ring, I think it's perfectly fine. I have personally no qualms with mood rings whatsoever.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. It, as you said, it is doing the skeptic's work. It is understanding this from the psychological perspective. But anyway, I think that's what we have to say on mood rings. We've gone a little bit long. Is there anything to add or anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, feeling pretty green right now. Feeling real fresh.
Feeling real fresh. If you'd like to tell us about your mood rings or comment on anything that we discussed in this episode, you should email us directly at info@wwd.podcast.com or post to social media on the normal social media sites. We can totally reach you there. If you are interested in supporting the show, you can go to patreon.com where you can become a patron. Tell a friend, like and subscribe, leave a rating and review. And otherwise, thank you so much for listening today. Thank you for recording with me, Shane. This is Abraham.
And this is Shane.
We're out.
See ya.
You've been listening to Why We Do What We Do. You can learn more about this and other episodes by going to www.wwdpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you have an awesome day.